Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a room of achievers right now and several more still coming in. You have all accomplished a lot in Toastmasters. Some of you accomplished a whole lot. We have some multi DTMs in the room, and we have some soon-to-be first-timer DTMs in the room, and I want to welcome you and thank you for coming, and thank you for getting started early this year on your DTM progress. We don't expect all of you to complete it this year, but as long as it's in the back of your mind that you're working on it and that this is something to work towards, then that is a success in my book. And I am going to try and mute a few people here as well. If you are not on mute, if you would do so, please, that would be very helpful, except for Sue, who I will introduce in a moment. And with that, I will keep letting people into the room. And we're going to have an interactive session today. We encourage you to ask questions by raising your hand, putting it in the chat as well, and making this as useful as it can possibly be. We want to answer questions. We don't want to just talk to you. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce the woman who will be in charge today, who will be telling us everything we need to know. And we are so fortunate to have Su Brooks, triple DTM in the room, although I think there's someone with 5 DTMs in the room as well. So sorry, Sue, if you've been beat. Sue is working on her 4th DTM as we speak, and this is part of the process for her to do so. So she's living the experience as we are moving forward. Sue has been a Toastmaster since 2000. She has completed 10 paths. She is a member of, 6 Toastmasters clubs in 4 districts, including here in District 119, Leaders Are Readers. And she is currently the secretary at Talk of Monmouth in District 83. And we have some guests from District 83 as well. And Sue has held pretty much every role at the district level: district secretary, public relations manager, pathways guide, club sponsor, club mentor, and club coach. Many of those we'll be discussing today as options for your DTM. And Sue is an experienced presenter of workshops, including one on the DTM path. She's given this once before, at least once. And this year, Sue is our DTM chair, and that is why she is going to be leading us through this today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Su Brooks. Please welcome her.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Emily. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to confirm you are seeing my screen. Please, yes. And you see the presentation? Perfect. Wanted to make sure you see the correct piece of the screen. There are a lot of open windows, and I want to make sure you're seeing the correct information. As Emily stated, we will be having an interactive session. I'll be going through a number of slides, and again, please raise your actual hand or your virtual hand, or type something in the chat if there's something you'd like further information on. This will be a general overview of what it takes to earn a DTM. And if there is something that you're super excited about and want to do a deep dive into later on during the year, please send that information to me and to Emily. And we will create additional presentations, whether it's delivered by me or someone else on Emily's team. So let's get started. It starts with a vision. Do you have a vision to attain a DTM? If yes, put it on your vision board and take that little fluorescent DTM sticker and smack it right in the front, so it's in your face every single day. In addition, I wanted you to know that I am grateful that there's your vision board. Yay, Emily. That my friend Anna, who's here today, had proactively seen the announcement and sent me some questions. So Anna, I do have your questions, which I will answer during the course of the presentation when it is appropriate. So the Distinguished Toastmaster requirements are as follows. You'll need to serve as a district officer for 1 year, and you will need to complete the DTM project. We'll be going through all of these in detail. What you will learn today, we'll learn how to use the DTM application as a checklist to stay on track toward your goals. But we're not going to do a deep dive into every single component. You'll identify resources, but more importantly, district leaders to help make your vision a reality. You'll get an idea of some potential DTM project ideas and why a DTM is right for you. Logistics for today's meeting. We'll have time for questions and answers. Again, you may raise your hand, virtual hand, or put questions in the chat. I've also planned that we can have some time at the end of the presentation to take a few of your questions if there's something that you thought of. And this presentation deck will be shared in the chat after the meeting is over. So you don't have to take a whole bunch of screen snaps or furiously write notes. If there's a resource that I will be speaking about, there is a link to the source on the Toastmasters International website. So let's get started. Why is a DTM right for you? If you see me looking this way, I'm using more than one monitor. Once you earn a DTM, you have that DTM title for life. It builds credibility. And did you know that fewer than 1% of Toastmasters earn the award? And it is something that you have to show for your time, efforts, and financial investment. Let's discuss planning to serve as a club officer. The graphic here is the club officer handbook. At the bottom, there's a link to it. If you're not familiar with it and you are a club officer, please do so. I know some of you have taken on the role of club officer for this year. And in addition to what Emily shared in my intro, I've also just accepted and been inducted into the club secretary role for leaders or readers for this year. That's a late breaking piece of news. Many club officer elections take place in May for the Toastmaster year that just began on July 1st. Some clubs already have a full slate of officers, and people have started to take their club officer training, which goes through the end of August. But some people still have an opportunity to serve roles because some clubs, I understand, still have a few vacancies. So please review the requirements for your role in the club leadership handbook. The 7 officer roles are president, vice president education, vice president membership, vice president public relations, secretary, treasurer, and sergeant at arms. If you've been elected to one of those positions, please read the requirements in the handbook. You don't have to read the whole handbook. If you're like me, you could read the part that's your specific role and glance at the other requirements so you see what the relationships are between you and the rest of the people on your officer team. If you're planning to serve as a district officer, please contact Melvin Garlick, who's our district director, to learn about the appointed positions and information about the application process. Typically, you would contact the district nominations chair to apply for an elected position and information about the application process for the following Toastmaster year. The elected positions have already been appointed, have already been set up, and the officers have taken their training. This takes place towards the end of the Toastmaster year for the following Toastmaster year for the elected positions. Typically, that takes place in May. Please talk to people who are involved and who have held the position so you can get an idea of what's needed to be successful if one of those elected positions is something that you are interested in pursuing. In addition to reading about it, excuse me, in the district officer handbook. I've placed a link to that resource in this presentation, so you could look at it a little bit more if you're interested in an elected position. So what are they? These are also appointed positions. These are area directors, the district administration manager, the district finance manager, and the district public relations manager. Please note that in some districts, other than District 119, the area directors and the district public relations manager are elected positions. So keep that in mind. More on the elected positions. These are the division directors. There are more than one. I believe there's up to 5 in this district. Emily, you could shake your head if that's true. And there is our club growth director, Emily, our program quality director, Harry, and our district director, Mel. There are different names for the different people if you are in a district other than 119, but these positions are elected. Next thing I want to go over is if you are planning to serve as a club sponsor, mentor, or coach. These are all very interesting, exciting positions, but they require a lot of time, energy, and commitment. But don't let that scare you or stop you. They're all very rewarding. As Emily mentioned in the introduction, I've served in each of these roles. If you want to serve as a club sponsor, mentor, or coach, please contact Emily, who's our club growth director. A brief overview: new club sponsors help new clubs through the successful completion of the charter process. I'll go into each of these on the following slides, so you don't think I'm just whizzing right through it. New club mentors help newly chartered clubs learn best practices and work towards success for a minimum of 6 months after the club charters. I actually stayed on with my friend and fellow new club mentor, Anne-Marie Poach-Targalakis. After our 6 months were over, we stayed on for another 6 months to help the club reach success, and leaders or readers actually became select distinguished at the end of its inaugural year. It's totally up to you. And club coaches help struggling clubs with membership building and more. So let's look a little bit more at what each of these roles involve. For a club sponsor, you provide your expertise to help organize a new club. In some cases, the district leadership will have some ideas of some clubs that they know want to get started, but in other cases, it may be up to you to help provide a lead. And if you know that perhaps in your workplace or a community organization, or there's maybe a niche market and you have an idea for a club, reach out to the district leaders and perhaps you can serve as one of the club sponsors. You will need to get 20 or more members to charter. You'll be collecting membership payments, charter fees, members, organizing the membership roster, and getting the roster of leaders together. A club can have up to 2 sponsors, and this needs to go through the district leadership to be appointed by TI, by the district, and registered on Toastmasters International site. This is appointed by the district director, and your designation will change from pending to awarded when all the forms and fees are received. So one of the things you can do is enhance your leadership and teamwork skills if taking on a position of club sponsor is right for you. To serve as a club mentor, this will provide you will provide your expertise to help new club get off to a successful start for a minimum of 6 months. I spoke earlier how I served as one of the new club mentors for Leaders of Readers, along with my friend Anne Marie. And again, you can have up to 2 club mentors. That's actually a really good thing because the 2 club mentors can work together to help provide their expertise. And you don't have to attend every single club meeting. If one of you can't make it and the other can, that is perfectly acceptable. And your designation will change from pending to awarded after the club president informs Toastmasters International that you have successfully completed your term. And this will enable you to enhance your communication, leadership, and teamwork skills. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about the club coach. There are a few slides on this one because there's so much to learn. You're going to provide your expertise to help a struggling club increase its membership and identify areas with which the club needs assistance. This will vary from club to club. It's not a one-size-fits-all. A club can have up to 2 club coaches at the same time, and these are appointed by the club growth director. Your designation changes from pending to awarded after you have successfully completed your term, the club attains membership strength, and all reports are submitted. You must complete coach training and provide reports during the course of your term. You're going to be able to enhance your teamwork, communication, and listening skills. But wait, there's more. The requirements for a successful completion of the club coach role have changed since last year. So if you've had this role before or familiar with what you need to do, when I took it on a few years ago, it's very different. You must serve a minimum of 6 months. The club must attain at least distinguished status in order for the coach to earn credit towards DTM. A coach cannot have been a member of that club in the previous 6 months. And the member cannot join during the appointment in order to boost the membership count. In other words, you, club coach, cannot join and say, oh, okay, that's one more member. That's different from the previous requirements. In other words, you need to get more people who were not previously members of the club. And you cannot be one of those people unless the club attains distinguished. Keep that in mind. There are additional resources listed here with these hyperlinks. You can explore them after the training today. And if anybody's interested, we might want to create a deep dive into the role of club coach so you can learn more about it to see if it's right for you. Let's talk about Speechcraft. Anybody here familiar with the Speechcraft program? Speechcraft introduces non-Toastmasters to the Toastmaster program. Conducting a Speechcraft program is an excellent way for membership building as an opportunity for your club. Did you know that one time I was facilitating a club officer training and we had people zooming in from all over the country? There was a woman from a club in the Midwest. It might have been Wisconsin. And she raised her hand and she said, Speechcraft, we do them all the time. That's how we get most of our members. So keep that in mind. It's not just something that you check off towards getting your DTM, although successful completion of a Speechcraft program does help you. Think about it. Even if you're not doing a Speechcraft program, think about that as an opportunity for somebody else in your club to consider. And if you're a vice president membership, think about that, or make that connection with that person to plan for success. Now, this can be used strategically for your club or a struggling club to build the membership where you set the price for participation. that's actually perfectly legal and recommended by Toastmasters International. Here's an example. If you want to pass along the price of the materials plus a Toastmasters membership and application fee, it's perfectly reasonable that someone would pay $90 for 6 months of public speaking education and practice. It is an absolute bargain. It is something you might want to consider because the cost of purchasing one of the Speechcraft programs is $50. So you and the members of your team can figure out how you want to structure the fees. You might be using a Zoom account and you want to offset some of the costs for that. I've placed a link in here to the resources on Toastmasters International where you can read up about what it takes to facilitate a Speechcraft program. And to learn more about the program here in District 119, please contact Emily, our Club Growth Director. Her contact information is linked right here. And did you know that people who successfully complete a Speechcraft program are already on their way in their Toastmasters path? Depending on how many projects they complete, that counts towards pathways credit, whether they complete a full level 1 or 1 or 2 speeches into their level 2. If they complete everything that they need to do in that program, they're already well on their way to becoming a seasoned Toastmaster. So think about that. And you can lead a Speechcraft program for 4, 6, or 8 sessions. It's up to you in terms of the number of sessions and the frequency. One moment, I just closed my presentation. So 1 moment, I will launch it and scoot right back down to where we were. Let's learn about the Youth Leadership Program. I know my friend Genevieve, who's on the call today, has served as a chair, and she's a great resource. But our lead here in District 119 is Felicia Howard-Lee. Youth leadership programs are excellent because they help provide communication and leadership skills for students in middle school and high school. The Youth Leadership Program is also a great way to introduce the Toastmasters model to the parents of your participants. Did you know, every time I've been out in the community at a street fair or booth fair or business expo talking about different clubs and Toastmasters in general, adults who have children in middle school and high school always ask about programs for the young people. Now, the Youth Leadership Program can be conducted in person or virtually. One person can serve as the lead coordinator for credit, and another person can assist. It's good to have a couple of people running the program together. And then you can swap roles for a continuation of another session for the second person to receive credit. I know a few years ago, 2 friends of mine, Frank and Alex, did that in District 83. Because the first program was so successful, the students said, can we keep going? Can we do this more? So they did, and they swapped roles. And then each person was able to get leadership credit. And you can reach out to school districts, scouts, youth organizations through churches or synagogues. You get the picture. You might have to go through additional training for what we would call youth protection or sign some waivers, but that is to ensure the safety of the youth as well as your own. The DTM project. You can contact Toastmasters International when you've completed 1 complete path in Pathways plus level 3 in your second path to request that the DTM project be made available in your curriculum in your Basecamp portal. It just doesn't magically appear. You have to ask for it. And what you need to do as plan and complete a project that benefits an organization. Now, keep in mind, it does not have to be Toastmasters. And a member can request this from the Education Services by team by phone, I've listed the number there, or by emailing them. They're usually very responsive, and you wind up seeing that program appear in your portal very quickly. At one time, when I reached out to them by phone, the person on the other end of the line said, oh, okay, give it about a half hour. And voila, it was in my portal in 10 minutes. So that was wonderful. It takes a lot of work, but it is very rewarding. There's a helpful reference listed here about DTM projects, so please explore that. It was an article in the Toastmaster magazine. So here are some project ideas. These are some friends from one of my clubs in District 83. It can be something to benefit one's club or district. Emily's DTM project was organizing and executing our Women's History Month event in March of this year. Mine, as Emily stated, is serving as the DTM chair this year in District 119. So this is a full year project, a full year commitment. Yours doesn't have to be a year. It could be a month. It could be 6 months, but it's up to you to make the decision on what resonates with you. And a few years ago, what I did for another DTM was I created a mentoring club, a mentoring program for a club I was coached, and I maintained that project and that mentoring program for 6 months. You want to give it a start time and an end time. That range can be up to you, but make sure it's meaningful, it resonates with you. You'll need to organize a team, and you'll need to present a speech at the beginning. You'll need to execute your project and do a wrap-up speech at the end. It's not a throwaway, it's not a giveaway. Now, I am going to pause the actual presentation here because my friend Anna wrote in some questions about the DTM project, and I'd like to take a moment to answer some of them. Anna's question said, as division director, how can I help my area directors and members in my division complete their DTM projects? I want to give them an opportunity to do something at a division level, and I feel there could be multiple ways of doing an HPL project here. So the DTM project is separate from an HPL. I'll explain that briefly. An HPL project is included as a requirement in a few of the paths. It's not in every single one of the paths as a requirement. It is, however, an optional elective in the other paths where it is not required. A DTM project is a little bit more extensive, although there are many parallels. Without going into a deep dive into the DTM project or the HPL project, I wanted to answer some potential fun ideas. One, you can execute a speak out or participate as a facilitator. This one's for an HPL project for the Friday night speak outs. I know District 83 is the ground or the anchor for the DTM speak outs, and people have facilitated HPL projects there. We have partnered, District 83 is partnered with District 119 to have host clubs. The speak outs are organized and sponsored by clubs, but we've had one club here in District 119 and a partner club from another district serve as the sponsors. And those are twice a month and hosted by clubs in 2 districts. Another thing that you can do is for project opportunities is to serve maybe as a contest chair. You could serve as a chief judge, a Zoom master, and different people can lead different contests. So taking on that as a DTM project might work for you, especially if you've never done this before and it's a challenge for you. My recommendation is to work with people who've served in that role before to get an idea of what's involved and talk to the district leaders. So you can get that information and consider that. Something else, and so specifically to Anna's question, is somebody can do that at the division level for their division contests that take place later on in the year. And different people can lead different contests. So you'll be pulling together many people on a team. The other thing you might want to consider for a DTM project, whether it's at the district level or at the division level, is you can lead educational sessions throughout the year. You can come up with a series. You could talk about pathways. You could talk about contest prep per topic for speech, humor, tall tales at table topics and evaluations. You could lead different sessions. You could lead panel discussions. So leading educational sessions could be your DTM project. For your division, you could come up with a PR plan. Again, you can coordinate with the district public relations manager, so you're supporting the goals of the district. But as it relates to your division, the clubs, the areas and the clubs you're supporting, you can create a Facebook page and update the posts on a regular basis. My friend Gina, I can't say if Gina's here right now, did this for her division in District 83. You can create a division newsletter and you could post and share on your social media page regularly. So having that PR plan for your division can be a project. You could take on membership drives as a plan for the year. You could coordinate that with our club growth director. You could coordinate that with your division director. You can have a booth presence at street fairs, business expos, and other things throughout the community. So you could take that on for the year. Another thing you could do is create a deep dive session into seminars, into Free Toast Toast, Easy Speak, or any of the other platforms that serve Toastmasters clubs for different websites. So those are a few examples. And if you want more information or more ideas, we can continue to brainstorm. So you can have some training courses, public relations, developing leaders, mentoring, educational and cultural events, chairing a conference. Oh, that's a good one because I know the district always needs help with that. You can create evergreen documentation. For example, I'm working on a project to help people learn about the Friday night speakouts. Usually we just talk, this one's actually a high performance leadership project or HPL, but you get the point, something that's important. And if you want more information, please contact Mel or Harry and Aziris, our program quality director, or Emily, our club growth director, if you're looking for an idea to support the district, or if you have an idea to share. Let's talk about the DTM application briefly. This is not a deep dive, but there's something I want to call out. I've written down the link to access the form on this page on the TI website. It'll take you to a page, then you have to click through for another link where you can download the form. After today, I recommend, highly recommend, you go and download that form. I want you to use it as a checklist, whether you're just beginning your DTM or you're well on your way. Download it and start filling it in, because that'll help you attain your vision. It'll be there and you start filling in the blanks. Your name, well, you know what your name is. You know your address, you know your email. You know the club you're involved in or the club that you want to consider awarding it to. But some things are not in your club profile where you can go back to sorry, not your club profile, your personal profile. Certain things are not in your profile that you need to account for on this form. And that is the date your club created the club success plan. Some clubs are doing them now. Some clubs are planning to do them in August. But that information is not on your profile. Once you do it, write it down on your DTM application and the date that you attended club officer training for your position. It's not in your profile. Sure, the district leaders might have that in their records, but say you were a club officer 1 year and it's taking you a few years to achieve your DTM, which is perfectly reasonable. But you forgot, when did I go to club training? Was it 2015? Was it 2014? Was it July? Was it December? I don't remember. How am I going to get that information? So my advice to you, download the form and fill in those things. Everything else on the form, I'll leave you to read that on your own. All that can be accessed from your profile, but those two pieces are not. And again, we can do a deep dive into the application on another instance of DTM training. So let's talk about timing for the long-range appointments and projects. Let me give you a few stories. Sometimes you have a goal to achieve it in this Toastmaster year, perhaps before the end of June 2024. But something can come up and derail your plans. Let me give you an example. 1 year, I was president of a new club, and we wanted to hold, that wasn't what I wanted to tell you. When I was a district officer, when I wanted to become a district officer, I wanted the appointment in May of 1 year so I can fill my responsibility for the full year, the following year. So I reached out to the incoming, what was called district governor, and I said what I wanted to do. And she said, well, if I'm elected, I'll consider it. And then she appointed someone else. So I had to delay my service by a full year. But what I wound up doing is I wound up getting smart and asking someone else the following year to connect me with the incoming district governor for the appointment that I wanted. So I was able to serve a full year as district secretary, but a year later. So keep those things in mind. It might not always go according to your plan. Another example of things not going according to your plan, this is working with other people whose schedules might impact your ability to complete something that you want. One time, I was working with a young lady who I was mentoring. Previously, I had to mentor someone for their first 3 speeches, and she had done 2, and I was waiting for her to complete her 3rd. So I was reminding her and connecting with her. And here's what happened. She was a communications officer for Rutgers University in New Jersey. And then President Barack Obama was to be the keynote speaker. So she, as the communications officer, needed to not focus on Toastmasters and her 3rd speech, but to plan the commencement exercises and President Obama's visit. So I had to take a step back for what was important to me. It's not all about me. It's about the other person. So keep those things in mind. And I did eventually connect with her. She did give her speech, and I did complete my requirement, but it was the following Toastmaster year. Again, keep those things in mind. If something else I thought about when I was organizing trainings in my club, it was a brand new club, and I was president. we wanted to build club officer training in a new location. And I was actually shocked and pleased how many people stepped up to serve as trainers. They raised their hand. I thought I'd have to beg. So sometimes people also are looking for you to succeed, and they'll raise their hand and say, sure, I'll help you. So keep those things in mind. That was a pleasant surprise. In terms of the timing, now is a good time to get started. If you do want a district officer position, I know when I last spoke to Emily, you could correct me if the information has changed, that right here in District 119, there are still 6 area director positions available. 5?
I think so.
Okay, so
Now
there's 5. There's 5 now. If you are still looking for a club officer position, a district officer position, effective now, you can get started. And because it is July 15th, we're still in the range we're taking it on, and being appointed will still give you district officer credit for the entire year. Keep that in mind. I know also it's good to have different things going on at the same time, but again, try not to take on too many things that are time intensive all at the same time. You could technically take on a district officer position and perhaps do a speechcraft or a club coach position. You do not want to be a club officer, district officer, be a club coach, and try to sponsor or do a speechcraft youth leadership all at the same time, because you do not want to say, yes, I'll do that, and then be totally overwhelmed and overbooked and not be success at any of them. So look at what your schedule looks like personally, professionally, your family responsibilities. Do you have young children? Are you taking care of an elderly relative? Do you have to stay late at work? Think about those things. Every person is different, but think about what's right for you. And for more information about your DTM, you can contact me. I've included my email. And as a reference, the DTM project information is listed here. And please continue to stay informed about any requirement adjustments made by Toastmasters International each year. They're not going to flip one in the new year, in the current year for something you're already doing. But if they change anything like they just did with Club Coach, it'll be effective for the following year. The information I've communicated today is current as of today. So enough about me. Let's talk about you.
So I have a question.
Yes, Lorraine.
So I was a club coach in 21 to 22. Does that still apply for the DTM once I start out with the application, or is that too far in the past?
No, it's a great question. If you've successfully completed and it comes up on the profile as awarded, yes, it is still valid. Once you earn any of these things, such as coach, mentor, sponsor, if it's not already applied to a DTM, yes, they don't disappear. They don't go away.
Thank you.
I see Karen has her hand raised. Karen.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Okay, so far I have completed a path. I'm going to say a path and a half. I served as club officer. I just got finished serving as area director. I served as a mentor. And I did this project. So I had a 70th anniversary celebration for my club. I used it as a high performance project. And as a result, we got 5 to 6 new members for that. So I cannot use that as a DTM project or
Correct. If you've completed an HPL project and you use that towards your path An HPL project is separate and different from a DTM project.
Okay, so if I wanted to do like a series of educational workshops for the district with that would be, yes, okay, thank you.
That would count. You just have to write it up that way. And for your DTM project, once you've asked Toastmasters for it, it appears in your portal. You read it, download it, look everything over, give a first speech, execute the project, and then give a second speech. That's the procedure.
Okay.
And I hope that's helpful.
Yes, yes, it is. So if I'm understanding correctly, I've done everything except for that and complete the second path.
All those things, go through the DTM application,
Uh-huh.
look at the different line items, see what's this, or this, and see which are unique and see which are variables. Go through the application, and if you have any other questions, let us know.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. How difficult is it to complete the dynamic leadership path? That's up to you and what you consider difficult. It's each path has its own unique strengths and challenges, as well as things that resonate with you. That's a very interesting question. So, and Tamara made sure that we wanted everybody to know that make sure your project, not project, but your designation is awarded rather than pending before you submit something to TI. So go into your profile, make sure it is listed as awarded. I think I spoke about that earlier in the presentation. I see Lisa, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have a question about the pathway. The 2 paths has to be completed, but I do know I completed more than 2, but I just don't know where to find my completion dates.
That's a fabulous question, Lisa. That's in your profile under your achievements board. If you go into TI, you log in, you go to my home, and then scroll down. There's an achievements board, and then you click through to that. In your education, it will show up your paths, and then you could sort whether things you want to show by a certain date, if you want to show everything, and it'll show when you completed the paths. Lisa, you brought up a really good point in terms of, do you have to have your paths completed before doing the project? And the answer is no. You could still be working on completing your 2 paths. In other words, you will already have finished 1 before you start the project, plus level 3 of at least your second project. But you don't have to finish the paths before you start your DTM project. In fact, in my opinion, having those things underway and parallel is very good, because you're still giving speeches, you're still interacting with your club, you're still working on completing those things, and your DTM project might be a little longer, that as Emily's discussed, as I've discussed. So keeping those things going parallel is good, and that's not overwhelming. Working on completing your second path, or third or fourth or fifth, or wherever you are in your journey. And once you use the first 2 paths towards one DTM, if you're working on subsequent paths, those can go towards another DTM. And I see Genevieve, you have your hand raised. Genevieve.
Hi, hello everyone. Hello, Sue. So mine is it's kind of like a question and a comment.
Please.
So for a DTM project, does being I guess a trainer or a workshop presenter in another district count as a DTM project, or it has to be more involved than that?
That's up to you. Fabulous question. It could be in whatever district you want. We are Toastmasters International. Some of us are members in multiple clubs in multiple districts, or even if you're in 2, you can do your project in one district or another district or cross districts. And then once you decide which club in which district will receive your award, that's fine. Just as long as it's in your documentation that you're upfront about it. Like, for example, when you introduce your project, you could say, I'm going to lead a series of educational sessions. It will be in districts 45, 119, 38, 76, wherever you're a member. And you could even be a guest presenter. For example, I was invited up to a club in Quebec, and I wasn't a member of that club. I wasn't a member of any club in that district, but I was a guest presenter. So sure, you can have that as long as it's in your plan and you communicate it in your opening speech. Genevieve, I hope that's helpful to you.
So do you have to be a presenter multiple times for it to qualify as a project, or it can be just one session where you're leading the workshop? I'll give you an example. This week, I'm actually, for District 18, I'm leading a youth leadership program training for that district. So me being the presenter at that workshop, is that sufficient to use as a DTM project?
That will be up to you and your committee and your team to determine if what you're doing is sufficient. I don't know how much preparation went into the project. The only thing is if you're it really is up to you and what might be a challenge for you. Read over the DTM project, read over the requirements, read over what's involved. It will vary based on what your project is and what's a challenge for you. Is one presentation for one something enough? It depends on how much work went into it. It depends on you, but only you can answer that question once you read through all the materials to determine if you think that is substantial enough. So I recommend you read over the project and then decide if that is a substantial enough project for the DTM project.
Okay, and you can, and can you use a project you've done already for the DTM project if you haven't reached, like for instance, if I will reach the DTM project level, say in 3 months, but I did the project 3 months ago, can you use it or it has to be current? I don't know if you answered that already. I'm sorry.
Generally speaking, you read the project over, you get a committee together, you go through all the steps, and then you execute a project rather than backdating something that you already delivered.
Okay.
I believe that's the best approach because we want to make sure everything is upfront and aligned with the integrity of the project. Genevieve, I'd like to reach out to some of the other people who have their hands raised. After I answer their questions, I'd like to, we can always circle back because I see we have 5 minutes left in today's program. Patrice.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So I realize it's a lot to me right now. I'm super overwhelmed. So I understand the mentorship, the speech graph, all this stuff. And you said you have to request what it is, the DTM project, right? And it gets loaded. But all the other stuff that I'm getting credit for, does that show up somewhere? Who do I have to tell? Is that something I type in somewhere and someone say, okay, you did this speech graph? How does that work?
Speechcraft is usually awarded by once you successfully complete the Speechcraft program in the Speechcraft portal, you go through all the steps and submit everything indicating that your speech crafters have successfully completed everything. That goes on record that you've successfully completed it, and TI should have a record of it. So you register your Speechcraft, you do all the projects, your speech crafters do all the projects, and then TI will have a record of the successful completion. So you should have a date. You successfully completed it as well as your speech crafters. So write that down when your final speech craft has ended.
Okay, thank you so much, Sue.
You're quite welcome. I know.
So, Sandra had two very quick questions in the
Please.
chat earlier. The youth leadership program, can that be done? Excuse me, online?
Yes, absolutely. I know Genevieve worked with Somesh Ablani, and they reached out to a number of people all over the country, and yes, it can be done online.
That's great. And the second question, can non-DTMs serve on your DTM panel or committee?
Absolutely. The more
Or non-DTMs, non-Toastmasters rather.
That's a good one. Non-Toastmasters can, in fact, when you're working on your DTM project, it does have to benefit an organization, but as you stated, Emily, and as I mentioned again in the presentation, your DTM project does not have to benefit Toastmasters. So yes, you can have non-Toastmasters on your committee, but there needs to be at least one. I hope that was helpful. Is the process laid out for Speechcraft the same process as for the youth leadership? It's not exactly the same. What I recommend, I think it's Tanika, is go to the resources that are listed in the presentation that I will upload and click through and read through them, and you will see the variations in one and the other. Clearly laid out, clearly, well, that's all debatable. One thing I do want to say is, in order to really find out about the Speechcraft, you actually have to plan one and register one, because some of the information is blocked to you before you begin the process. A lot of it's out there in terms of general information for getting started, but to really look at every piece in the Speechcraft curriculum, you have to actually decide on having one, put your name in, register, pay for it, and put your name in there, and then you have access to more of the pieces of the curriculum. If there's no other questions, I'd like to turn it back over to Emily. I'd like to share my presentation. So thank you so much for being here. Let me get the chat open.
Thank you.
And I will place the presentation in there.
Thank you, Sue. Round of
Back to Emily.
applause for Sue. This was a heroic effort. So much information and more than we could even share here. We put a link in the chat for a follow-up form, so you can let us know what you need help on. We can help you track your progress. Sue will be managing that specifically for District 119, but we're here to help other districts as well. And we will also email you. I'll make sure that we share the presentation in an email. We will have more presentations coming up. If you want to stay after, I'm going to stop the recording, but if you want to stay after for a few last minute questions, you are welcome to do so. And we appreciate you coming today. I hope that this was helpful.